wonderful to be here today and to have the opportunity to talk to you. Thank you for coming to this. It's been a huge pleasure for me to work with Larry, probably somebody who cares so much about so many. And there were some pretty difficult moments at the end of writing this book as these newspaper headlines came sort of roaring past us as we were trying to finish up the book. And I think the thing about caring about all of this is that even though it's incredibly difficult to keep going and to, I love the kid who said that, this is hard. I think as teachers, this is, what we're all about. And so I'm just going to talk a little bit, and I only have about 20 minutes, and then I have to go and teach. So I'm not allowed to stay. I'm not able to stay, unfortunately. So I'm going to zip off to go and teach my students. But I'm going to talk a little bit about caring. And my frame is that we have to care about ourselves and about the work that we do. So the very first thing I'm going to talk about is caring and looking after each other as colleagues. Because this work is difficult, it's endless, it requires us to really hang on and be resilient. So I'm going to talk about caring about each other and about ourselves. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about helping kids care about themselves too, as well as those that are in the classroom. So that whole idea of caring about the community, and even as difficult as it is sometimes, there's part of the book where we talk about, we all dream about that fantastic classroom, and occasionally you get just an amazing class. But we began to think, you cannot rely upon that magic. Because I know as a teacher, sometimes you get that, and you're lucky, and it's working, and you're going to have a fantastic year. But most of the time, the work requires a lot of energy and a lot of thought. So that kind of caring, having kids care about each other, is important. And the third kind of caring I'm going to talk about is caring about the work. Caring about the work that happens in classrooms, caring about the curriculum, caring about learning, helping kids understand that their classrooms are places for possibilities, that there is the opportunity for them to be successful. And if we care about that kind of thing, that often other things fall into place. If we give them open, imaginative, relevant, powerful, rich, interesting curriculum, and we maneuver ourselves around with them in it, often that dispels some of the worries that we have in classroom dynamics. And the last thing I want to talk about is caring about the language that we use. David and Booth and I had a really wonderful conversation a couple of weeks ago about caring about literacy and all this work around social justice and all this work around the inclusive classroom and all this work that we're doing around culturally relevant and responsive pedagogy. The key to all this is caring about the words that we use and the words that we choose as teachers, as well as helping students care about that too. So I'm going to start with a little picture book. Because this is for you. And it's called So Few of Me. And it's about us caring about ourselves. Leo was a busy lad. No matter how hard he worked, there was always more to do. Maybe making a list would help. Leo's list of things to do grew and grew. So few of me and so much to do. If only there were two of me. And just then there was a knock on the door. Leo opened the door and blinked and rubbed his eyes. It was another him. The new Leo grabbed the list and said, 2 of us will get it done. He was helpful, but found even more to do. A third Leo joined the two. How about four? Four makes a fantastic team. Sounds like the Toronto District School Board, but never mind. But maybe a fifth would be even better. Still not enough, a sixth came in to help organize the lot. After meeting for hours, they decided they needed a seventh. With 7 Leos, there was 7 times as much work. Leo sighed and said, we'll need 8 just to catch our breath. The 8 Leos worked furiously. Maybe 9 Leos would get it done. No, and 1 more to make 10, each one busier than the next. Leo, 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 and Leo paused to review the list. I think I read that right. Back to work, 9 Leos shouted. No time to stop, no time to rest. But Leo himself was exhausted. He slipped away to take a nap. Leo awoke to 9 other Leos staring at him. What were you doing? They demanded. What were you doing? I was dreaming, said Leo softly. Dreaming was not on the list, they roared. Leo smiled, still savoring his dream. The Leos disappeared one by one. Leo wondered, what if I did less, but did my best? Then 1 Leo is all I need. Just me, just one, with time to dream. So Few of Me by Peter H. Reynolds. So that's about caring about the dream that we all have, to look after ourselves as we go forward to do this kind of work with students. The other thing that I care about is caring about each other, helping students understand that we have to look after each other in the group. So I have a little surprise. I've just finished working with a grade 4-5 class at Shoreham Public School. And I began the class with this. Took it out of the bag, and in it are all the, I said, what do you think this is? A grocery list, maybe? You know. Anyway, we used this as a beginning to think about and work with the brilliant picture book called The Name Jar, which I have right here. And in our book, Larry and I have worked a lot with this picture story book about a little girl from Korea. Here are the names that went in the name jar, who comes to North America and has the opportunity to attend school, but the very first thing that happens is that she confronts a number of bullies on the school bus. And because they make fun of her name and the way in which it's pronounced, she says she doesn't have a name. So when she goes into the classroom and they ask her name, she says she hasn't got one. And I love it. All the kids say, you know, why doesn't she have a name? You know, how could this possibly be? So in our book, we talk about identity. We talk about how important it is to accept everyone for who they are as they walk into the classroom. We talk about the importance of understanding that we're all different, to celebrate that difference, to honor that difference, to work with that difference, to embrace that kind of difference, and to help people who are on the outside of things find their way in. Because that, of course, is what a caring classroom is. And what I'd love you to do for just 1 second is turn to a partner and tell them your name. And if you have a name story about your name, or your sister's name, or your mother's name, or a funny name that you know, or a name you wish you had, you have 30 seconds, literally, to just introduce yourself to the group. There's tons of activities that we have in our book around names, about looking at names, talking about names, telling name stories. I have a story about my name, which it takes too long to tell right now. But the name jar is a wonderful little book to work with in the classroom. The next thing I want to talk to you about in the next few minutes that I have, and I just looked at the clock. You know, I never have enough time, but is to talk a little bit about the work. And you know, I do think that one of the things we say in our book is that, you know, people think that teaching is about, or some people think teaching is only about the curriculum. But actually, the work is huge, as you know. I mean, I teach at York, and I teach pre-service teacher candidates, and they kind of think that it's one thing. But it's actually not. It's just so layered, and when I began writing my very first book, I found that amazing poem by Galway Connell called "The Bud," where he says the bud stands for all things, and he talks about how important it is for us to help people and help kids understand their loveliness. So our job as teachers is to reteach them their loveliness, to put a hand on the brow of the flower and say to it in words and in touch, "You are lovely," until you rebloom again from within of self-blessing. And you know, one of the challenges and the wonderful thing about working with Larry is that he teaches young children and I teach older children. And so for me, it was really fascinating to think that, you know, the amount of work that if we were successful at doing this, to begin early to help kids believe in themselves and to understand how important their interaction is with one another and themselves, and to feel honored by their teacher is important. So I think one of the things that I feel strongly about is that it's really about doing the right thing. As hard as it is, you know, figuring out teaching, like what is the right thing to do at this moment. And I love this excerpt from Alistair MacLeod's No Great Mischief. It's an amazing quote about these four boys who became orphaned by their parents. Their parents died. They went underneath the ice on a fishing trip. And these four boys live alone, and they're you know, young adolescents. One of them is a child. The story is told from the child's point of view. And they go off to town to get over the water to get food and supplies, and they come back. And what always happens is that the mare comes down to the water because they leave her a box of oats. And she comes down, she eats the oats, she waits for them, and she drags all the stuff back up to the farmhouse. And in this case, this young boy forgot to put the oats down by the water. And here's the quote. "Where are the goddamn oats?" my brother said as he prepared to go over the side to meet her. My admission was suddenly noticeable to all. "As if there hasn't been enough wrong with this day, and now this." And he seized me by the front of my jacket and lifted me up with my feet dangling over the side of the boat as I looked to his enraged and swollen face. I had the temporary sensation that he might fling me overboard. "Put him down," said my brothers in chorus. "Put him down, it's okay. She comes anyway, the horse comes anyway." "It's not okay," he said, shaking me so hard that my teeth rattled. "She comes because it's part of the bargain. She depends upon us to do the right thing." And then he more or less let me fall to the bottom of the boat, and it was difficult to know whether I had been rejected or released. And I guess what I'm saying is that every single kid comes into our schools believing that we're going to do the right thing for them. And there's so few of us and so many of them, that the trick to find ways of doing the right thing for all is sometimes overwhelming. But just because it seems as if it's huge and, you know, overwhelming doesn't mean that we aren't all going to try. So I'm going to end with the last bit of caring that I care so much about, the whole thing around voice and around using language in appropriate ways in classrooms. And when I talk about student voice, you know, some people think, you know, that I'm asking kids to be unruly or rude or not. And I don't mean necessarily this kind of a voice. A little girl was talking to her teacher about whales. The teacher said that it was physically impossible for a whale to swallow a human being because even though it was a very large mammal, its throat was very small. The little girl stated that Jonah was swallowed by a whale. And irritated, the teacher reiterated that a whale could not swallow a human being. It is physically impossible, she said. The little girl said, well, when I get to heaven, I'll ask Jonah. The teacher said, well, what if Jonah went to hell? And the little girl replied, then you ask him. I'm going to finish with another kind of voice. I have a fantastic group of students that I teach. And I have one particular student who wrote a reflection to me a couple of weeks ago, and we managed to get this in the book. I was so happy. She teaches secondary school, and she has a host teacher. And she works with students who struggle in school. And she was in this classroom, and they were reading plays out loud. And this young boy, grade 11, I don't know what they call them. You know, they call them all sorts. We used to call them, never mind, I won't even mention the word that we used to, you know. But she uses these terms, so I know that this child is a struggling reader. So anyway, they decided as a class that he would read the stage directions. So he began to read the stage directions, and she writes in her reflection about how the teacher stopped him and said, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to stop you. And my student teacher's heart fell, and she said to him, the host teacher said to him, has anybody ever told you, you have the most beautiful voice? You should be in radio or television. You need to pursue this. My heart is breaking as you read with its beauty and its power. And this student, she said, of course, he's in grade 11, so he didn't smile. But she said his whole body language, the way in which he conducts himself in the classroom changes. And so the final quote, which is in our book, is the quote from Haïm Janot, who we love, which is the quote that I think everyone knows by now. But it's the quote that all teachers in caring classrooms and schools that have issues and difficulties, as they all do, that you can put up on your wall or put up by your desk. Because our language matters. And we need to believe that what we say and how we say it, when we say it, to whom we say it, does create a caring classroom. And that we need to be mindful of the words that we use so that we actually make a difference to the lives of our students, to those who are discouraged, to those who don't think that they can do it, so that they have hope to go forward to be better citizens, to live publicly useful and privately happy lives. So this is my quote that I'm going out on. I've come to a frightening conclusion. I am a decisive element in the school. It is my personal approach that creates the climate. It is my daily mood that makes the weather. I possess tremendous power to make another's life miserable or joyous. I can be a tool of torture or an instrument of inspiration. I can humiliate or humor, hurt or heal in all situations. It is my response that decides whether a crisis will be escalated or de-escalated and somebody humanized or dehumanized. Thank you very much.